Hey, thanks for listening to the Udrcast. If you appreciate the kind of in-depth conversation and insight into recovery, make sure to sign up as a member. Most of our members pitch in $5 or $10 a month, the price of a few coffees. To make this happen, you can sign up at the website at BILLWARDLIFE.
The Udrcast is not affiliated and does not represent any 12-step fellowship. I, Bill Ward, the host of the Udrcast, will be sharing my experience and my journey of recovery. That does include, but is not limited to, the literature contained in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps. Our guests will be sharing their own path to recovery and what has worked for them. The Udrcast encourages and supports all paths to recovery. Welcome everybody to the Udrcast. UDR stands for Uncover, Discover, and Recover. My name is Bill Ward, and I'm coming to you from the recovery capital of Canada, Calgary, Alberta. Here we are going to discuss everything recovery, different perspectives, different experiences, both with the people I know and with others from around the world. If you resonate with anything you've heard on this episode today, we ask that you share it with anyone who you think may benefit from it. If you have any questions or comments, please find us at BILLWARD.life and send us a message in the info section. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you are interested in more recovery content, you can find the buttons for the YouTube channel and other social media outlets on the homepage, and you will be redirected to those platforms. We can recover, one person, one family, one community at a time. And this is right around when I met you, was watching you get some things back.
Yeah.
Probably got a bank account, probably had this, probably got a little bit of that, started dating a couple chicks, whatever.
Yeah.
And had some good bros. You had some good bros going on and things were going pretty good. And me as a watcher, I'm watching and I'm like, okay, this guy's, he's not quite on the right path. And I could already tell that you were a bit of a leader and you could be a real good leader. And so I was drawn to you to try to plant some seeds, let's say. And what I was hoping for was that you were going to ask me to sponsor you, and you knew I was hoping that, I'm pretty sure, but you weren't fucking asking.
Not a fucking chance. Dude, I see, here's the thing, okay, is that I'm going to classify you as in this group as well. When there's certain people in recovery, when we're there, people know we're there, right? Not that it's an ego or a pride thing, but I'm a very outspoken person, right? And back then, I feel people have felt the same way, but I used that to my advantage, right? And it's people look, now in recovery, okay? In recovery, people look up to me, okay? People look up to me. People are watching what I'm doing, right? Do I want to lead by example or do I want to be a fucking piece of shit, right? And what changed, we'll talk a little bit more about sponsorship in the future here, but I'll kind of go back to what you were talking about in that sobriety phase. You know what I mean? I had a real tough time with the God thing, I think. I don't think I've had a tough time with it. I just really didn't think it was for me, right? I remember sitting in a meeting with a good friend of ours who moved to Kelowna, and she was like, Regan, she's like, where's your big book? And I'm like, I'm not really a big book guy. She's like, oh, maybe you should think about doing that. You know what I mean? And now today here's the thing. Here's the way that I've been shown how to sponsor guys. And I mean, the only book that I use is the Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's the only book I use. You mean and we only, pages, you say the program of recovery is 164 pages, okay? In my opinion, the way that I've been taught, it's 103 pages.
Me too.
That's right. That's where the program is, okay? The other two chapters are stories or whatever it is. I mean, when we look back, I'm going to get a little off track here. When we look back, we go through the preface and we look at the recovery rate back in the 1930s, okay? About 50%. 50% got sober at once, okay? 25% sobered up after some relapses. and the others made, some strides. Okay. So what did they have back then? They had the big book, right?
Clear cut set of directions.
That's
and
it.
They were taken through it in a certain way.
That's it, right? And what's that certain way? Because it's been, it's been watered down a bit, okay? You know what I mean? You go to a meeting, you look at the fucking steps on the wall, right? They're the steps, but
They're the steps, but they're not the steps.
No.
Because the steps are clear cut directions hidden in the pages of all the fluffy shit around inside the big
right?
book.
You got to read through the bullshit in the book, okay? Because the way that the way that I see it is that back in the 1930s and 40s, they had this one book, okay? Someone got sober right away. Two of them got sober right away, okay? So what did they do? Well, they fucking made this book and they kind of shared it with other people. It doesn't say so much that, they don't use the word sponsor in the book at all, right? But it says, vital to permanent recovery, I must carry this message to struggling alcoholics and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I know there's a 12 by 12 and there's a couple other good pieces of literature out there. You showed me some good stuff in the 12 by 12 when I was struggling with relationship stuff, which I still struggle with today, but not as much as I used to, right? I'm kind of over that, but
So I want to kind of go back, from my perspective, because I did work with you for a bit, and I did want to work with you, and I really kind of was fishing for you to bite the hook. And eventually we were having a chat. I'm pretty sure you might remember we were outside one of the meetings and I don't know how it came to be. And I said, I would want you to ask me to fucking sponsor you is pretty much what I said. And you were just like, and you weren't really biting, right? And I was like, fuck this guy. I was like, this fucking guy. And then eventually you did. And we started doing the work. But what I knew while we were doing the work was I knew that you were already past you were past the point of me being really effective. I gave it my best shot though. But you were already, the ego had reasserted itself.
100%.
Let's put it that way. 100%. And I couldn't do what I needed to do because I wasn't in there early enough through the process. And so I gave it my best shot, and and that's, it was too bad because I really wanted to fucking try to help you back then. But anyway, so let's kind of kick into your behaviors, you going back out, kind of what happened, and then let's bring it back.
sure. Like you say, you're 100% right when you stated that the ego kind of reasserted itself with me, right? And it's like, did I even really let it go? I don't think so. I got humbled by fucking by hopelessness and fucking in defeat. But that, like I stated before, that wears off. It wears off over a period of a couple months in a treatment center when I've eaten steady meals, right? So, I remember, especially you talking about, relationships in early recovery. Okay. Like we talked about before, I need relief. Okay. And if drugs and alcohol aren't giving me relief, women are going to give me relief. Okay. And not knowing that the relief has to come from God. Okay. And these are all things I learned later on in recovery and throughout pain and suffering. Right. Mm-hmm. Got in an early relationship, moved her in, broke up, didn't know how to deal with that fucking emotional wreckage. Right. I was only with this girl for 4 or 5 months, but you'd think the way that I had fucking crumbled around, it was like a fucking, it was like a 10-year relationship, right? But I never gone through those emotions sober, right? Not like I wouldn't, I blame that, but I decided using would be a good idea again, right? And it was like, and we talk about relapse not being an instant thing, okay? It wasn't an instant thing for me, right? I set the stones in place. I lined up the dominoes, right? She had left. I got resentful. I'm hurt, right? She started dating someone else right away. More pain, more resentment, right? And eventually I need relief. I need relief from this fucking shit, right? And it's like, I remember setting up the dominoes. I'm like, okay, I message this person so I know I'd be able to do something or get something or this or that, the other thing. I'm setting it up, right? And then I get into the point where like, I'm like, fuck, if one more bad thing fucking happens, I'm getting fucked up over this. Do you think one more thing happened, Bill? Right? I think it was the next day, right? I think the old straw.
Your fucking shoelace came on.
No. The straw that broke the camel's back was that she had posted that she was in a relationship with this new guy on Facebook, and I was like, "That's fucking it. That's it." Like, I'm getting fucked up over this, and like, and I didn't resort back to like, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna get a bag of Coke. Okay, I'm gonna get a bag of Coke. I'm gonna fucking do this fucking quarter ounce of Coke, and I'm just gonna go to bed. And I'm gonna fucking wake up like this never happened. I just need that fucking 10 minutes of relief, dude.
Yeah, take the edge off.
Take the fucking edge off, man. Look how fucking stressed out I am, right? Like, so I remember like going. I remember I fucking hit the first domino, and they all started fucking falling. Like that cool little pattern that you see people make,
yeah.
Right? And I'm fucking driving down to the south, and I've got, of course, I got the guy meeting me, and I'm fucking on the way, and I get there, I fucking meet this guy, and I grab it, I go to the Safeway parking lot. I'm in this fucking shit box of a car that I used to have.
What, 14 months, 16 months sober?
50, yeah, I think it was 13 or 14 or something, right? I think it was like, it was Christmas. It was Christmas Eve of 2019 or 2019. Christmas, like a couple days before Christmas. And I grab the fucking bag of dope, and I go to this fucking Superstore parking lot, and I stop the car, and I park it. I fucking take the rear view mirror, okay? I tilt it down, and I look at myself, and I'm like, here we fucking go again. I did that, dude. And I did that night. I shut her down. Like I said I was going to. Got like 2 hours sleep. I wake up, and I'm like, should probably get some fucking crack. So out to the door again, come back, another day. And I'm like, fuck, that was getting kind of expensive. I know what's cheaper. I'll get a bunch of meth. 10 days later, Bill, I've been up for a long time. I need something to come down with. Started using the fucking fentanyl again. I used fentanyl every day for 8 months straight. That and amongst other things, right? Lost the job. Sold all my fucking vehicles. Lost all my friends. A bunch of my friends died, right? We've talked about this. My best friend died in my fucking house, 4 feet away from me on the couch, dude. Mm-hmm. Right? These things that addiction creates. Things that, like we sit back and we're like, that's never going to fucking happen. I'm never going to watch one of my friends die. I'm never going to fucking stick a needle in my arm. I'm never going to, I'm never going to spend the rent money again. All these things, like we tell ourselves in all hardness, if you would, I believe it. I believe these things when I'm telling them, that's how powerful the disease is. Mm-hmm. We trick ourselves from inside our own fucking minds, and it's like, I believe these lies, and it's like, So 8 months of just chaos, dude. I remember seeing you at a meeting, and I'm like, I'm done. The old story, I'm fucking done with the drugs. And I still remember what you told me that day. You're not fucking done until the drugs are done with you, Regan. Besides, you've lost a lot of weight. That's the other fucking part I remember. You're getting pretty skinny, Reeks. Yeah. That's what fucking constant heroin abuse will do to you, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
I remember that night. And I want to kind of go back to your friend that had passed away.
Sure.
This is a friend of yours who you met in recovery. True?
True.
And you ended up working for him while you were rebuilding your life the first time in recovery, right?
True.
Doing some landscaping, and he owned a landscaping company, and you humbled yourself to do these kind of jobs, and you were kind of doing some of the things that you needed to do to try to gain momentum in your life.
Yeah.
And I'm many years more sober than you, and I had just started a landscaping company because I had just quit my career because I want to go to a next level. And I had started working for this friend of yours, and he was 6 years sober, and I was right around 5 years or 6 years sober myself. And we really got along really well. And as we talked and as we got to know each other, this guy, your friend, and my friend, he became my friend, a good friend of mine too. He would ask me all these questions all the time about recovery, about the steps, about this, about that. And when he got sober, he had started his business and he just distracted himself for years and years
100%.
and years. And he never did run a solid program. And when the shit came up that he wasn't able to deal with, the shit dealt with him and he fucking relapsed. And he fucking relapsed after 6 years. And I remember I told him many times, dude, I'll help you. I'll fucking help you. You say the word and we're fucking doing some work together. And he couldn't ever come to the terms of saying I need help and I want to fucking change, because his business was so important and that's all he knew. And that was what was keeping him sober. And he knew that. And then when he ended up relapsing, his first hoot was, I think it was crack.
Yeah.
He went on his spree, and his spree ended up fucking killing him.
Well, his spree and my spree made it, right? I think it was like a crossroads, and you mean it was because I remember when I relapsed, and I was, you know, like, we were pretty good friends, right? We were pretty good friends, and I was definitely afraid of telling him that I'd relapse. And I remember telling him one night, and he's like, Regan, I'm drinking in my fucking truck right now. And I'm like, oh no, right? I've never, you know, and up to this day, the last few days that we spent together, it was the only time I ever seen him use or drink, right? And he was using and drinking when I, like, because obviously when I went through I relapsed, I lost my job, I started working for him again, right? Gave me a truck again to drive, right? Because he, you know, that was the kind of guy he was, right? Yeah. He loved me, and I will always love him.
He's an awesome guy, man.
Awesome guy. But you nailed it on the head. We look at the disease of addiction, and whatever fills that fucking void.
Yeah.
Right? For him, it was work.
Yeah.
Right? He went to the odd meeting. He went to his meeting, his men's meeting once a week, right? You know, never sponsored any guys. You know, he hired a bunch of addicts to help him out doing his work. That was great. That was what he loved doing.
He never did the steps.
I don't think he ever did. Maybe at the very beginning when he was in the treatment center, right? But like he had the momentum and he built this business, and very similar like yourself, because I've heard your story before, right?
And that's why we got along so well, and that's why he asked so many questions, because he's like, dude, I relate with all the shit you're saying. He says, and I'm scared. That's why, and I liked him, and he was such a good guy, and that's why I really wanted to fucking be there for him, right? But he was one of the best, you know, like he was one of those guys that, you know, like I just connected with, you know what I mean? And like, and you know, and sad to say, I mean, like I wish I wasn't a part of that, you know, shoulda, woulda, couldas, you know what I mean? But like, I had a part in that. I mean, I went, you know, like, you know, I was the last person that he got to see, right? Mm-hmm. Do I wish it was on better terms? Did I wish that we were sober and it wasn't on that terms? No, I wish it was different. But like I look back and, you know, I remember having this realization that God was watching us that day, right? That God was watching us that day, and he's like, what in the fuck are you guys doing? One of you guys, he's gonna definitely kill someone drinking and driving, because that's what he liked to do, right? He liked to drink and drive his truck, right? Or the other idiot, me, is going to nod out in one of his trucks and murder a family of 5, right? I remember sitting there going, God was just watching us going, all right, one of you guys ain't waking up tomorrow. And hopefully that's enough for the other guy to get sober for the rest of his life, because this has to end, and it ends today. Right? And the old saying, like, sometimes some of us gotta die so some of us can live. And, you know, as shitty as that saying sounds, sometimes it's the fucking truth, man.
100%. And that death hit me. You know, I would say it hit me like a ton of bricks. Did I sober up that instance that I found, you know, that happened that morning? No. Right? Because there's no way that I'm dealing with that sober. Right? So I carried on for a few more days. Right? until the money ran out, of course, right? Because like I'm a guy, I'm one of those guys that I'm not getting sober until it's all gone, right? Until I've burned every last bridge, until I've spent every last dime, until I've borrowed every last cent. I'm not getting better, right? And was there some stuff that I regret doing? Yes. Have I made amends for that? Not yet, right? You know, and that's kind of risen its head up the last month or two around that situation that I haven't fully cleared up yet. So, you know what I mean? Like, I carried on for a couple more days, and I knew where the solution was. I knew that I remember I still had the people that we talked about this earlier, the people that I met in recovery, right? I remember when I relapsed, the first day I didn't go to my home group. I must have had 3 or 4 phone calls, 6, 7 texts. Why aren't you here? Or, you know, you're supposed to be here, right? Those people that did that for me that day, you know what I mean? I'm still great friends with one of them today. Just saw him before I came here. During that relapse, he drove me to detox like 6, 7 times. Picked me up in the morning, waited there till I got in, then left, right? Those are the people that I have in my life today. Those are the only people I want in my life today, right? So I go to detox at the end of, after this tragedy. I finally stayed the whole 7 days, right? The only other time I stayed 7 days was like the first time I went after the relapse, right? Because we're always desperate. We gotta get better, right? I used that first time I went for the 7 days. I got out and used. I remember like borrowing money off my mom. Oh, mom, I'm getting better again. But I don't want to get out of the detox center with no money. You know what I mean? Like, so can you like send me like $50? Well, you know what I spent the $50 on 3 minutes after I got out of the detox center, right? You know what I mean? So I went to detox for my last time. I went for detox for my last time. It takes 7 days. I got myself into another treatment center here in the city. I got out of, there's a little bit of a lag of a time getting in there because it was around COVID when COVID was in. So I got hung up on some red tape, so to speak, getting into the treatment center. Was that the last time I used? Before that detox day? No, I used once more before getting into the treatment center. But God willing, I remember, like going through the motions, because I had to piss clean to go to this treatment center, and of course I did it till the last minute I could, right? But like I got into this treatment center, and I'd been already working with a new sponsor at that point, right? And I got in this treatment center, and it's like one of those things where like I get to treatment centers, and I have my bags. This time I had a suitcase, actually, not garbage bags like I usually do, right? And it's like I get there, and like it's just like I just drop the bags, and it's like fuck, it's over. Like it's over. I can fucking just like breathe, right? Because like being a drug addict's a full-time job.
Yeah.
Right? And I can only have one full-time job.
Yeah.
So that, being an addict wins every time. Right? So I get to this treatment center, and I get in there, I piss clean for God save me on that one. I don't know. I only had like 2.5 days or something, right? And it's like I get in there, and this time I was like, I knew because of everything that everyone had ever fucking told me that was gonna happen had happened, right? And I really started looking at the book as my sponsor. He took me through the book in a method that is not real typical, right? I take people through called the cake recipe way, and I think you're kind of familiar with it.
I'm familiar with it.
Right?
I don't do it, but
I
know of it.
Right. So he started taking me through this way, and the benefit of a relapse, okay? Like, fuck if I could see a benefit at the brink of it or at the end of it, right? It's the worst thing ever. I threw away all this time. I didn't throw away the time. I just gained experience.
Yeah.
Right. So we're going through the book now. We're reading the book, and I'm like, holy fuck! I'm actually seeing this myself in the words in the book. And I'm like, holy fuck! You're reading the parts of the book. It's like, whatever the book told me what was going to happen, if I didn't do, happened to me, for one thing, right? And now anything the book told me was going to happen to me if I did it, it started happening, right? It started happening, right? So the benefit from a relapse is I get to realize what I wasn't doing, right? You know, and I'm going to tell you a couple things right now. What I wasn't doing is I wasn't willing to help anybody else, right? I never really got rid of the selfishness that the book talks about being the root cause of my troubles, you know, and I don't think I ever really did a real thorough step 4 or 5. You know what I mean? I think I did with you at one point, you know what I mean? But like, but not having a God, you know, like not having a higher power, not believing in something that's going to,
But you hadn't learned enough about humility and fearlessness and all those things it talks about in step 5. Your ego is reasserted, so it didn't matter what we did at that point.
no, like my fate was already laid out.
Yeah.
Right.
But this time doing it with your new sponsor, you had been beaten to a state of reasonableness, you know, able to relate with all of the literature, the good and the bad. You know, you got a couple options. That's it. One's to go back and die, and the other one's to do this. And your step 5 was probably very humbling in the right way. You learned enough about it at least to move on.
Right. You know, and it's like I've done multiple step 5s. You mean I've done a couple in this recovery. I mean, like you know, but like just like the book hit me hard. You mean like you know, we talk about the spiritual awakening. The book talks about, right? As a result of the steps. Okay, I had my first spiritual awakening. You know, I think at like, you know, this recovery, I'm talking like, you know, like about 3 years ago. You know, like because I'm a little bit over 3 years. So, you know, I was 12 stepped by the time I was 2 months into this treatment center. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I remember having that spiritual awakening. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this. You want to hear something about this?
Yeah, dude.
Right. So we talk about the spiritual awakening. I don't know I didn't believe that shit to you know, at all. Right. Spiritual awakening, spiritual experiences. Right. What I've come to know spiritual experiences being coincidences. Okay. A lot of my coincidences that I used to think were coincidence were actually God showing himself in my life. Right. And I'm going to have a pretty good example of this by the end of this podcast that will hopefully really hit home to people that listen to this, that from a guy that didn't really believe in God to some certain things in my life that you can't explain without having a higher power or some sort of spiritual or some sort of energy like living throughout me. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I just like back in 2018, I when I got into treatment there, I'd broken up with this girl. Okay. So when I was in this new treatment center in 2020, okay. So when I got for sober in 2018, my sobriety date was August 16th. Okay. So you fast forward 2 years, I could go through a relapse, all this bullshit. And like I check in this treatment center, I was like doing the little fucking calculation. I'm like, oh my sobriety date is August 16th again. That's kind of fucking weird. I didn't plan this shit. It just worked out, right? So I can't fucking remember where I was going with this. What was I talking about?
You're talking about a spiritual experience.
Oh, okay. So I had this girl that I'd broken up with before getting into this treatment center in 2018. She got murdered in January of 2020. Okay, her and her boyfriend, you know, she was still into the life and whatever like that, and her and her boyfriend got murdered on the side of the highway in BC. You know what I mean? Like people in my life don't get murdered. You know what I mean? Like I didn't even think I was that part into my addiction where, you know, I was in that life where you know, people are getting stabbed to death in cars and shit like that. But like, no, this shit's happening, right? So that, you know, I'm working with my sponsor at this point, and that kind of hit me hard. And you know, we're talking about death, and Derek, you know, my friend that had passed away before getting into this treatment center, we're talking about death, and my sponsor looks at me, he's like, Regan, he's like, we don't know why God takes people. He's like, when your fucking time's up, your time is up, right? And I'm like, I guess you're true. That's kind of true. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, and he's like, Regan, God's plan is fucking God's plan for you. And I'm like, what? He's like, well, God has a plan for you, Regan, and like, you're just in it. So whatever happens in your life, it's God's plan. Either you accept it and move on, or you don't and live miserably. So what is it gonna be? And I'm like, so the plan's the plan. Like God's plan is God's plan. And at that moment, I feel it right now. That light was like, ding. And I'm like, I'm just living in God's plan here right now. Whatever happens is God's plan, right? All the shit I've been through is God's plan for me, right? And we look at like, there's no life should I be sitting here right now talking to you? Okay. We look as a full blown heroin opiate addict. Okay. I use 90% of the time alone. 90% of the time alone. Okay. And this half a dozen times that I've overdosed, miraculously, there was someone there to call 911, Narcan me, or get help from me. Every time I've overdosed. So can you explain that? That's not explainable, right? But in all rights, I should be dead. Okay, so there's okay. Well, that's God's plan. What's God saving me for? My response at the time is like, "Fucking Regan, God's got work for you to do." That's all I can see at this time, right? So I'm like, okay. So I've had this light turn on. I'm like, I remember going back to the treatment center in the shower, and I'm staring at the fucking thing. I'm like, the fucking plan's the plan. Like, fuck. I'm like, how did I not live my whole life like this, right?
I remember running into you. I was doing a speaker engagement at that center shortly after you'd returned, and I think it was probably somewhere in your second month or something. And do you remember running into me?
Yeah, it was you and the other buddy,
Jesse.
Yeah, Jesse.
Yeah, and so I started talking to you, and I had seen a different light in you. I had seen something different. You were fucking motivated, bro. And you're telling me, I'm talking to these guys, I'm doing all these things. But you got to realize at that moment, I'm still a little skeptical, right?
Yeah, no shit. No shit.
But that was the first time I had ever seen you that like motivated and pumped up about the book and about carrying the message. And like there was something different, right? And then subsequently from there, I have watched you fucking do the deal and dig in, and you fucking pretty much just lived at that center and sponsored guys coming out of there like a fucking madman, and fucking you haven't stopped, right? So that was like the beginning of what I saw back then of your roots grasping this new fucking soil. And I was just talking about it the other day. And I always say, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. And I looked at the person I'm talking about. I have to believe that. I do believe that. No matter what it is. I said, do you think that when I was fucking burning down my life and I was fucking wanted to die and I wanted to fucking kill myself and all this other shit, and I lost my family, I made them homeless, and I fucking lost all my money and I had nothing, do you really think that I thought that was like a God's plan? No. But I had to go through that so I could find the light. And I didn't know that God was going to do what God did with me to make me useful in the world. And if I never went through that, I never would be where I'm at today, living the best life I ever lived. So I do believe that the plan is the plan. And it has to be that way. And I don't think of it any different. And like, some people may fucking hate me for saying this on the air, but like these wars and all the shit that happened and some of the things that have happened in our society over the fucking years, it's part of the plan, man. And I don't know why it's part of the plan. I don't know what the fucking master plan is, but you and I are living a fucking snapshot in the fucking whole universe and time of fucking human race. So we won't know what the fucking plan is, but we're a fucking fraction of that plan, and we got to live our piece of that plan to the best that we can with the plan now.
Right.
Right?
I don't think I want to know the plan, to be honest with you.
No.
You mean?
It's like an adventure. Life's like an adventure. Yeah.
Right?
Every day I get up and it's like, okay, what's going to happen now?
Right.
And fucking some days it's fucking great. Most days it's great. And the odd day it's not so great.
Right.
But you know what? Part of the fucking lesson in the not great day is there's a fucking lesson in there for me so that I can fucking learn and grow and heal for one reason. So I can pack into the stream of life something better for somebody else.
Right. You know what I mean? And I can't agree with you more. I mean, like, we look at, this little God's plan for me. I mean, like, I don't know what it is. I don't really care. I'm just a part of the fucking, the old fucking plan ski. And it's like, I think that's kind of like how I had that spiritual fucking awakening, so to speak. I mean, and the book tells me I'm going to have spiritual experiences along the line, and I'm going to touch a little bit about that right now, right?
Okay, so as you were kind of working through that first set of steps, again, your second set of steps or whatever it was with that other sponsor, Pat, and really awesome guy, fucking amazing human being. You got through that set of steps and you started just doing all the things, right? And you were lit like a fucking Christmas tree and you haven't stopped pretty much, right?
Yeah. So like, like we look back at the experience of, like sponsorship had changed my life. Okay. And I remember lots of people telling me, like if you're not sponsoring guys, you're missing the best part of this program. And I was like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? I mean, like, does he not have anything better to do than to fucking work with these alcoholics on fucking a day-to-day basis? And, and I was like, okay, well, I get back into this recovery thing. I'm working with my sponsor, and he's like, man, he's like, I won't work with you unless you're not going to work, if you're not going to work with other guys. And I was like, 100% I'm going to work with other guys. That's one thing I didn't do. I think it was a big part of my relapse. And, and we talk about, steps 6 and 7. Okay. And like, in the big book, they're pretty minimal little paragraphs. Right. And I've learned a lot from you over the years about what 6 and 7 really looks like. I mean, we talk about character building and about changing behaviors and all these kind of things. And like, I look back at that period of sobriety, I didn't change anything. Mm-hmm. I just stopped using drugs. Mm-hmm. You mean? I still carried all the behaviors and inconsiderate habits throughout my life, right? And they came back to fucking burn me, right? So I'm like, okay, well, like I gotta change some things. I gotta change, right? So when I started sponsoring guys, I started to have to be accountable, right? And having some integrity. And what does integrity look like? Well, doing what I say the fuck I'm gonna do, right? So if I'm going to meet you at fucking 4 o'clock in this parking lot, I'm going to meet you at 4 o'clock in this fucking parking lot, right? And a big part of my downfall was the way that, I treated women, right? And the way that, I womanized and took advantage of people, right? And it was, in all respects, I can see it plain as day now, But like a guy that didn't know much about recovery and just thought you needed to stop using heroin, the next best thing was, screwing around with women. Well, how could that hurt me? And it's like, okay, so I started sponsoring some guys, right? And then I started realizing, I'm like, well, this kind of makes me fucking feel good. If I know anything about my life, I like shit that makes me feel good, right? So the more, and I did it at first because, you
didn't want to die.
I didn't want to fucking die. And and I told my sponsor I was going to, right? So I remember I'm still in group in this treatment center, like phase or group 2 or whatever they call it. It's like the second part of the second half of the session we do in this treatment center, and I'm like, my sponsor's like, he's like, well, you're ready to start sponsoring guys. We just went through step 12. And the way I go through steps is that, we get to the work as fast as possible. And we get to like the working with others part, like by the 8th appointment, right? So he's like, well, you go find some sponsees. And I'm like, okay. So I started putting my name up and the way that I started sharing in meetings, I've been told you could hear the way that I was so passionate about recovery now, right? And I think of the passion that I had for recovery, or I have for recovery, right? When you're reading the book with fucking guys, people fucking catch on if you're not fucking believing what you're reading.
Yeah.
Right? In every part of this book I read, I believe that it was written for me and about me, right? And I was so passionate about fucking showing people, what I have gained. And sharing with them my failures about how I failed and was like, we look at a sponsor relationship, and I learned a lot of my sponsorship skills from you, right? There's no fucking fuck around bullshit fucking recovery. I'm not doing it with them, right? You want to work with me? Like this is how the first appointment goes for me, okay? Right? We go through like the expectations, okay? And this is what I tell them. I'm like, listen, okay? I'm if you're here to fuck around, you're going to get results of fucking around, right? Just like I did, okay? And what I tell them, okay, I'm like, we're meeting right now, okay? In a week, we're going to meet again. In that week of lapse time that I don't see you, maybe, you're going to call me twice, right? You're going to call me twice, not text. You're going to fucking call me twice. Even if the phone call is like, hey, Regan, I'm just making that fucking phone call. Cool. Right? Bill, I'm going to, a little question and answer period for you. How many guys do you think, I'm going to say right now, like, we'll say I've worked with hundreds, over 100 guys now, right? Right? We'll say, we'll take the number of 100, okay? Out of 100 guys that I have that conversation with, I mean, like, about the phone calls, and the phone, and the phone call conversation goes like this. I'm like, I don't text or call my sponsees, okay? If this isn't my recovery, right? Like, how bad do you fucking want it? Do you want it bad enough to fucking call me twice in a week? Right? Out of 10 people, how many people make those 2 phone calls, Bill?
Well, in my early days, probably, 2 or 3, maybe. These days, if I set those parameters, most of them do what I ask. Okay. But the difference between my early days and now is I'm not getting the brand new guy typically now. I'm getting the guy who fucking been relapsing for 10 or 15 years or whatever. And he knows that I'm really serious, and I will lay down the rules also at the beginning. And I say, if you follow my lead, I'll fucking match you. And if you don't, I won't match you. And it's up to them as well, right? And I often do the same thing you do. I usually won't chase them around. I might, if I haven't heard from them for a few days, say, hey, how's it going? But in the big picture, back in those days, it was very rare. Nowadays, because I attract, I'm going to say this, and it's not to hurt anyone's feelings, I attract a higher caliber of willingness to do what it takes. So most of the people have a high regard for working with me, and they will listen to most of the directions that I give them.
Yeah, and I think I can agree with that. Is that like the respect that people have for you in the recovery community in Calgary and probably all over the country now is a very high regard. You mean like and obviously, Bill, me and you don't see eye to eye on some things, right? And that's to be expected. We all have different personalities and stuff like that. But we built a friendship over the years, and I have a high respect for what you do and how many people you help. You know what I mean? And I've taken the little pieces of people that I've worked with over the years, and the most effective thing that I think I've used, right, is this no bullshit recovery. Okay, you want to work with me? I will work with you. I will match your effort level, right? If your effort level is very low, so will mine, right? But if you want to meet 2 or 3 times a week, I will meet you 2 or 3 times a week, right? And it's like, I started working with these guys, and you know what I mean, and we'll say here's my other statistic, okay? So I probably worked with 100 guys, more than 100 guys, okay? And out of 100 guys, how many guys do you think I've gotten through a full set of steps?
I'm gonna say probably 10.
Okay, you're pretty close. I think it's 8, 9, almost 10. Okay. And this is how this beautiful program that we have works, okay? How many guys do you think, so I've gotten, we'll say 10. You probably nailed it. Probably 10 guys through a full set of steps. And all of those guys have started working with other alcoholics. They've gotten a home group. They've changed their behavior. They've changed behaviors. Out of all 10 of those guys, how many guys do you think are still sober today?
Probably about 6.
You're close. I think it's about 8, right? 8 or 9. I just had a guy.
That's good.
Right. I just had a guy relapse like a few weeks ago. I had one other guy relapse, but he got on the horse pretty quick again and started sponsoring guys. But all these guys, they got through the set of steps, and all I told them is that I'm going to show you what to do, right? I'm going to take you through the instructions in the book. If you follow the instructions the way you're laid out, you will recover. That's it, right?
That's it.
And all those guys took that, started sponsoring other guys. They still sponsor guys today. Mm-hmm. And I think there's 8 of them that are still sober.
That's right? Really good rates, bro. For 100 guys, and to have 10 that you've worked with through the 12 steps, which is also pretty decent. And then to have 8 of them still sober is really decent. I know when I did, I'm guessing my first 100, it's hard to really say, right? But my first 100, I think I only had maybe 6 or 7 through the steps. But then like my next 100, I think I probably ramped that up to like probably 20 or more. And now, I'm probably in around 300 to 400 guys. And I'm going to say almost every person that I sponsor, I'm not saying everyone, but I'm going to say probably 7 out of 10 I get through the steps now. And out of those 7 that I get through the steps, like almost all of them stay sober long term. But mind you, a lot of the people I work with are already sober and they're looking for more spiritual level up or whatever. So,
Yeah.
But what I've noticed is over the years, as I kept sponsoring, I got better. And I knew how to handle, drill the literature in and the important pieces of the literature and what to hammer over and over and over. And I became healthier and more leveled up myself. So I became more intuitive. So it just fucking happens that way. So like, I'm super stoked. We talked about it earlier about, you're at 3 years and I'm coming up on 9. So I got 2/3 more time of doing what we've been doing. And I love collecting the data like you do to see what's working and what's not working. And like watching you like inspires me. And I'm watching you and I hope to see like in 3 more years, like these rates are even greater. And like at your 9 years, you're like kicking some fucking major ass. Right. And so a lot of my inspiration comes from like watching like guys like you collect this data. And like, maybe some people would frown on us for talking numbers and shit, but I don't frown on it because it's really important data. It makes me more effective. Isn't part of my deal to grow an understanding and effectiveness? This is not an overnight matter. I'm trying to be an intelligent agent, a spearhead for God's ever advancing creation. Intelligent agent means collector of information. Yeah. To be a spearhead, to try to help people fucking live their best life, right? So we need some of that data, I think, right?
I think it's, I don't do it to deter, maybe. I say I don't do it to scare people, but at that point they should be pretty fucking scared, right? And it's like, it's pretty simple, okay? You do it to the book, the best of your ability, the way it's laid out, and you continue to do it, right? I think that the in my opinion, this is only my opinion, the key to long-term sobriety is sponsorship, right? And if anyone disagree with that, then that's their opinion too, right? But like going to meetings is great, okay? Sponsoring, going to meetings is great. Chairing your meetings is great, okay? Being a part of a subcommittee is great, okay? Lots of people get I know lots of people that do a lot of service work and don't sponsor guys that are still sober, right? You know what I mean? Like, but what's been taught to me is if you're not fucking doing if you're not sponsoring guys, you're not doing step 12. If you're not doing step 12, you're not doing the steps. Right?
And I'll add something in there. Part of the data collection that I have done is healing. I watch people heal from their inner wounds. I see their peace and serenity. I see how God has restored their sanity in all these different areas of defective character. And the number one way that I've ever seen to help myself heal and the people that I've worked with and the people that I see that are the most balanced and got what I want, they're doing sponsorship. It's the healing mechanism. In the 12 and 12, it talks about until I had shared my story with somebody else and listened to somebody else share mine, then I could understand what true kinship between man and God really was. Mm-hmm. The closer I get to know my fellow human being, which is the best way is through sponsorship, the more I get to know myself. And the more I get to know myself through this relationship and my heart opens, their heart opens, the more I get to know God. And as these things happen, I heal, I build compassion. I'm not as judgmental towards human race and people. I can see that this world and the people in it are emotional, spiritually sick, and frequently wrong. Just like who? Just like fucking me.
Right.
Just like you. And the levels of acceptance that come through this organic process of healing different aspects, it heals many aspects. And then us as these little people in the world, we're helping heal the world and
Right.
in our own little way, right? And it's just, and we're turning our will and our life over. So it produces long-term sobriety, but it produces like deep emotional sobriety.
Yeah, well, I think that like the sponsorship, like we look at this, the book tells me that the self-centeredness obviously is the root cause of all my troubles. Well, what's the best way to be unselfish? Well, probably helping someone else, right? And I've got to watch these. I have some really close sponsors, and these sponsee relationships turn into friendships, right? Because I have a couple close friends that are sponsees still, right? And I remember the first time that I saw him, Chris, God bless him, he's still crushing it today. You know what I mean? I remember when he because he used to call me every couple days, texting, with every little problem and stuff like that. And then he started growing and he started sponsoring other guys, and he's he's getting his kids back and all this kind of stuff. And and like the phone calls, he didn't call as often anymore. I felt sad. Obviously I'm happy that he's crushing it, but it's like, these people are leaving the nest. They don't need me as much anymore. And I remember talking to a friend, and she's like, Regan, she's like, I went through the same thing. And like what someone told her was like, the only way that you can explain the feeling is like a mother raising a child, right? And I could see that now. It's like, you raise this child, and now it's like going on its own, and like you're feeling that loss of I don't want to say camaraderie, but like, it's like, there's someone like, it's like raising a child, and now they're like going out of the nest, and you're setting them free. And, and I've had that, and I think the best motivation I've ever gotten through sponsorship is like watching fucking like guys from a complete fucking disaster mess turn their fucking lives around, right? And it's like, this is what this fucking program is about. Mm-hmm. It's about healing. It's about helping other people heal, and then they start healing. They start helping healing someone else, and like, it's just, I knew this organism just fucking grows and grabs fucking people from the depths of fucking hell and brings them back, and some of them fall back in, and but like we're agents, we're agents of God, and we're like God's soldiers, like just like fucking trudging these trenches, trying to fucking grab as many people as we can out, and and some people don't make it, and then some people, I've had guys that, I would have swore up and down, fuck, this guy's not gonna fucking make this, and like, like 2 years have gone by, and they're like still fucking crushing it. And I'm like, and some of the guys that I'm like, fuck man, this guy's nailing it. And like fucking out of the blue, it's like it's fucking relapse, and they're fucking gone.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, I just don't know what God is gonna put in front of my path next. You know what I mean? Like, when I was like dude, like I remember like talking to you, and you're like, if you don't have like fucking 5 or 6 sponsees on the go all day, that's what you should have on the go. You know what I mean? And I was like, fuck this. If he wants 5 or 6, I'm going to have 8 or 9. Right. And it was like, and I was like, fucking anyone who asked me, like, I'm like, I still to this day, I've never not had a guy in active steps over the last 3+ years. Right. You know what I mean? I've worked with lots of good sponsors over the year. I mean, like, obviously the sponsor I work with now, Alex, his deal is amends and prayer meditation. Okay. And I've grown a lot through that experience. You mean like the amends part? You mean like cleaning up the past? I can see how detrimental that could be, right? And like the freedom that I've gotten out of that. And then it was like the prayer and the meditation. I was never a meditation guy, right? Like, it was like going back to the old God situation. Like, oh, I don't need that, right? And it's like, okay, well, if you're not using prayer and meditation, well, you're not doing step 11.
Yeah.
So now I'm not doing 2 steps at this point, right? Right. So, I work with him, and I started meditating, and I've done it consistently over the last couple of years now. And, I remember going through a phase where, I did it consistently for 3 months straight. 3 months straight, I did it for, I woke up in the morning, did it every the same time every day, and, I was fucking doing this. And I think at one point I was just doing the motions of it, right? And wasn't really feeling the effect of it. I was just doing it because I was doing it. And I just like stopped doing it, right? And stopped doing it. I started fucking struggling again.
Right.
Started struggling again.
Because you had something to compare it to.
Right. And the first thing I go, I knew going to, because I usually meet my sponsor once a week. We go for dinner or do something when I'm home now, right? Because I was in town before when I was first working with him, right? And I knew when I was going to go meet him, I knew he was going to ask me, because I had some shit going on. I fucking knew the first thing he was going to ask me, how's your meditation, right? So of course I started doing that right away again. Got a couple days in on that, right? And I was like, he's like, Regan, he's like, it's funny that you start struggling after you quit doing that, right? It's all about consistency and discipline, right? Like, so I've done that consistently the last year. You know what I mean? And it's like, and the meditation has even gotten deeper. You know what I mean? Like, like I don't, like it's one of those things where it's just an active part of the mind now. We just do it, right? And it's like I don't have to think about it anymore. I don't have to force myself to do it. You know what I mean? Like. I'm a very disciplined person. I do the same things at the same time every day. I do, I'm very scheduled, right? And my sponsor was like, he's like, well, let's try doing it at a different time. And I'm like, no. What are you talking about? I'm not doing it at a different time. I got it slotted for this time. And then I was like, well, maybe he's right. And that's the thing, man. It's like all I ever did in recovery was just listen to other people, right? Right? Maybe Regan, maybe you should not do that and do this. Okay, I'll do that. Right? And I think that was the big part of recovery, especially early recovery, man. Like, it's like I don't know what's good or bad for me at that point. Right? Like I need someone to tell me what to do. And that's why like treatment centers were so that I need a treatment center. Right? I'm not one of these guys that relapses and they go to detox and they just start working the steps. I'm just not that guy. Right. Yeah. I need that fucking that structure and that discipline. Yeah. Right. So, am I perfect all the time at these steps? No, man. Like, but like a couple things have been consistent. Okay. The first and foremost is I've never stopped sponsoring people. Okay. And bear in mind, I've stayed sober this entire time. Have I been wrestling irritable discontent very much over the last 2 years, 3 years? No. Right? Do I pray to God? Do I ask God for help? I do, right? Do I sponsor as many guys as I did 2.5 years ago? No. Because sponsoring 10 guys isn't sustainable long-term for me, right? I have we look at this, the program recovery. The program says I need, I get back into the stream of life, right? What stream of life looks like is, for me, is having a full-time job, and like what's a reasonable amount of sponsees for a guy that has at any given time, right? When I'm sponsoring guys and they're at the very beginning, they start sponsoring four minimum, right? Mm-hmm. And the only reason I say that is because if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be sober today, right? But you look at you fast forward a couple of years, right? Do I go beating down doors for sponsees? No, right? Do I share a message of hope that people are attracted to? Yes, right? If you want to work, my brand of recovery is not for everyone. I'm sure you can agree with that because it's not. I'm sure you've ran into people throughout your recovery, your sponsorship career that people just like don't like us that way. Yep. Right? Like they're fucking. They're like, I can't work with that. He's going to tell me what to do. He's going to keep me accountable, right? Like I don't give lectures to people. The only thing that I do is I share from where my failures were, right? Mm-hmm. You want to go fuck that girl in that treatment center? Be my guest, because I know what's going to happen. Yeah. Right? Right? You don't want to believe, I didn't believe the guy that was telling me when I was doing it either. Yeah. Right? Do I expect you to fucking believe, I've had guys make terrible mistakes. And I'm like, I don't want to be the guy that is going to say I told you so, but I will be. Yeah. Probably when I'm driving you to detox. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And it's like, I'm very passionate about my failures. Right? I learned some very fucking hard lessons. Right? Right? And man, and if I could turn back time and listen to the things that you told me back then, right? Like I'm going to share this little piece of fucking beauty with you. Okay. I remember you outside of a meeting, especially when I was struggling with the newcomers, right? The newcomers were fucking just fucking kryptonite for me, dude. Right? And you're like, Regan, you're like, if some girl asks for help and come give you a number, just say no. They know I can't do that right now. Right? It's gonna fucking feel very painful at the time. It's gonna feel painful to fucking turn her down. Right? But the more you do it, the easier it's gonna get. Right? Right? And I was like, this guy's fucking crazy. I'm not gonna turn down that chick. I'm not gonna do that, dude. Right? Because I can't see it. I can't see where it's the problem, right? Until that problem almost took my life.
Right.
Right. And now I another thing about sponsorship, okay, and like as a leader or as an inspiration to people, or someone that people look up to, I can't sponsor guys and tell them not to do things that I'm doing.
That's right.
Right? So we talk about integrity in this program. What the most amount of integrity I ever gotten through this program was through this step. Right? Well, if I can't fuck, if I'm not telling him not to fuck this newcomer, how the fuck am I going to be? I can't do that. So I had to stop doing that. I was pretty terrible. Pretty questionable. Okay, I'm gonna use the word questionable because it really looks better than the word terrible. Okay, but I can't be doing that stuff anymore, man.
Oh,
right.
If you want to lead, you got to lead by example.
Right. You know what I mean? I don't want that reputation. I don't want that. I don't want to be that guy anymore.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want. That's the old Regan, right?
Yeah.
The new Regan has fucking respect for himself, right? Have I? We'll put it this way. Do I still suffer from that defect? I'm still working on the defect, right? I'm still working on am I a lot better? I am definitely a lot better, right? I have here's the thing. What do I have in common with a girl that has a fucking 1 month sober? Absolutely nothing, right? Absolutely nothing. What do and I have this ideal that I've created through the steps. You mean?
Yeah.
Safe
and sound relationship
right,
ideal.
Right. What does that look like for me, right? I can tell you what I think it should look like for me, right? The way I want it to look. That's a better fucking
the way your ego wants it to
right,
look.
what my ego wants it to look like, right? But realistically, I've taken a real step back from that whole kind of place in my life, right? I don't want to hurt other people, right? I don't want to hurt myself, right? I don't want that emotional turmoil, right? I remember when I was in detox, I remember calling this girl that we know, and I'm like, fuck, if I have to stay single the rest of my life to stay sober the rest of my life, that's what I'm willing to do, right? I wasn't in my right mind at that point, right? I think that's kind of unrealistic fucking thing to say. But I always think that certain things that we throughout our lives, I replay, right? It must have some pretty impact on my life, those things, right? If I still think about them today. Because there's a lot of things that I've done that I don't think about anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm just very cautious about who I bring into my life today.
Good. And that's the way it should be. And we set boundaries no longer out of fear, and we set boundaries out of truth and out of fucking love for ourselves. And we don't have to put up with other people's bullshit anymore. And
no.
Sometimes it's a fine line between intuition based in fear and intuition based in truth. But as we keep trudging this road of happy destiny, that line becomes more based in truth of love for ourselves and for other people. And we stop doing a lot of those things, and we stop getting involved in things that we shouldn't be involved in. And we don't let other people involve us in their bullshit, right? Like Tradition 10, we have no opinion on outside issues. Hence, because of that, we're not drawn into other people's controversy. I'm not drawn into other people's drama because of their fucking trauma. And I don't have an opinion on the outside issues outside of my autonomy, right?
Yeah.
My autonomy is based in my relationship with God. I don't have an opinion. Your viewpoints and all that shit, I can accept it.
Yeah.
It might be different than mine, and that's totally okay. But I'm not getting drawn into other people's bullshit anymore. And it's been a long, long, long fucking time since I've been involved in any bullshit.
Yeah.
Because I really live that, right? You know, when we look at Tradition 4, each group is autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or, you know, the program as a whole.
Yeah.
Well, my lack of autonomy and my willingness to affect the world and other people as a whole was fucking very apparent in my first set of steps. So now I don't have the right to fucking affect other people in the world as a whole. But my autonomy isn't based in selfishness and my wounded parts of myself anymore. It's based in creator and the healed parts of myself. So if I do affect the people in the world as a whole, it's usually more or less in a good way, right?
Right.
And with you too. So I'm just looking at the clock here and I
Yeah.
can see we've been bullshitting for 2 fucking hours, bro.
I could talk about this shit all night, dude.
So I don't know what I'm going to do. I might have to cut this in half or maybe I'll let it rock for a whole 2-hour episode. But I am going to cut us off here. And I just want to fucking say thank you for coming and sharing and being so vulnerable about your journey and your passion. And that's why people love your message, bro, is because it's similar to mine. Like we share from our heart. And that piercing of our heart into somebody else's pride, it hits their heart. And sometimes they don't even know what it is, but they know that they want some of that shit. And maybe it ain't right now. Maybe it's down the road. But, you know, we do have that common thread of fucking knowing that this shit changed our lives. It saved our lives. And it gives us purpose in our lives.
Yeah.
And without those 12 steps and with the people that helped us, we wouldn't be here right now. And we wouldn't be so graced with the life that we live today, like we talked about before we started this. You're living your best life, and so am I, every day. And the bad days aren't even bad. They're just days that we learn now, right? So, you know, I just want to say thank you very much, bro. And, you know, just keep rocking it. And, you know, probably like to have you back down the road and get some more experience and letting more shit grow and growing more. And we can talk more about meditation and the defects and all these kind of things. But we got a good one under the belt. So maybe a final message for anyone that, you know, might be new or chronic relapsing.
Sure. You know, Bill touched on, you know, purpose. Okay. I think my whole life I never had a purpose. Okay. And, you know, what this program created for me was a purpose, right? You know, we talk about this, you know, the promises in the book, okay? You know, like the book tells me that all these promises are going to come true if I do God's work well, okay? And we talked a lot about sponsorship, this little chat we had, okay? Well, God has given me a useful set of skills, okay? Those skills make me useful to drug addicts and alcoholics, right? So if I, you know, like the biggest thing I ever got out of this program was a purpose. My purpose is to be of maximum benefit to the next struggling addict, right? If we're gonna hold those gifts to myself, it's pretty selfish of me, isn't it? So I spread this message because it's my duty, right? A sense of duty, right? And I hope that anyone who hears this podcast, you know, at least heard something that you can relate to, right? And I'll end with this. You know, we talked about, you know, coincidences and spiritual experiences and spiritual awakenings, okay? So I have three pretty significant recovery things happen, okay? Both my recovery dates lined up to be the same day, right? August 16th, okay? And if you've caught this whole podcast, you know that one of my best friends died a few years ago. And I never went to the funeral. I had too guilt-ridden, okay? But someone had brought me the funeral card back from this funeral. And I was in the treatment center at the time, so I just put it in my light switch thing and just fucking, you know, just left it there. And one day I was walking out of this room and I Sat there and I've never read the card. I read the card and I'm like, I get through it and I go down to his birthday and I'm like, you gotta be fucking shitting me. His birthday is August 16th. Like, there's no way you make this stuff up, man. So, God willing, I'll have plenty more years to tell the story. So, thanks for having me on the show, Bill.
Okay, you're welcome, bro. Thank you for coming. Love you, man.
Love you too.
Thank you for tuning in to the Udrcast. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. The viewpoints and the opinions expressed today were solely of the individual sharing them. If you resonated with this episode, please follow us and share this link with anyone that may benefit from it. Please visit us at BILLWARDLIFE to see everything that we have going on. We can recover, one person, one family, one community at a time.